Howdy folks, I'm Damon Wood with Modern Music Studio, one of the instructors there. I give lessons on guitar and mandolin, ukulele, banjo, and dobro. And today I'm going to do a little tutorial on funk guitar, funk rhythm guitar mostly, and kind of James Brown songs specifically. I played guitar in his band for about 6.5 years, and in his opening band for 1.5 years before that. So I learned a lot about funk music, especially his stuff, and so let's get started here. I'm going to start you out with, this is a D7 shape right here. So this has got your ring fingers on the D on the 5th string, and then you got an F sharp on the 4th fret of the 4th string. You got a C note with your pinky here on the G string, and you got a D note here on the 2nd string. So we got a D, F sharp, C, D, and that makes a D dominant 7 chord. So a lot of blues and funk uses 7 chords, and funk takes it a step further and uses what's called a 7/9 chord. Kind of shorten it and call it a 9 chord in the funk game. But that one adds, if you look at the D scale, that's the 9th note of the scale. So it's an E note, which is the 2nd note of the scale, but it's in that higher octave, that's why they call it the 9th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we're looking at the key of D. We got D, E, F sharp, G, A, D, C sharp, D. E being that 9th note. Okay, so that's how we get a D7/9 chord. This is kind of the staple of James Brown funk music. This is, I kind of just call it the James Brown chord. Now there's an extension to that that I learned on stage while James Brown was trying to get me to play this chord, and I had no idea what he was talking about because he was giving me a signal like this. He was going, that. What he meant was 13. So if you're playing a dominant 7/9 chord, the James Brown chord, and you put your pinky down here on the 7th fret of the small E string, that takes it up to the 13th note of the scale if you were to keep going past that 9. And that's a B note. So we have the D7, the D7/9, the D7/9/13. You can shorten that, just calling it a 13. Excuse me. Then we have the Jimi Hendrix chord, which is like the D9, but it's called a raised 9 because that 9 note, that E, is sharped up to an F there, raised. So this is a D7 sharp 9 or D raised 9. So we got 4 chords. We got D7, D7/9, D7/9/13, and D7 sharp 9. So let's get into a couple of songs here. This is a groove that happens a lot. This is in Make It Funky and Hot Pants. Probably one other one, but Pass the Peas is the other one. So this is kind of a groove like this. So if you notice, my right hand is just going steady with the beat. But it depends where I'm hitting, whether it's a downbeat, how many scratches are going, how many ups. You know, so just to give you an example, first you have the chords on top, and then that second line shows you how you hit the chord and how many scratches you have and such. So I'm trying to get this, these couple papers included with this little tutorial for you. But anyway, say in the case of Hot Pants, you got one guitar going, doing that thing. You got another guy at the same time going. So that's working with the, and they're really complementary with each other. In the case of Make It Funky, one guy's doing this, the other guy's going like 2, 3, 4. That kind of thing. So one guy's going, the other guy comes in right after that downbeat. So then we look at, so you got these, this is the 1 chord in this case. If we're in the key of D, a lot of James Brown songs are in the key of D. A lot of times what will happen is you'll go up to the 4 chord, which would be 10th fret bass. That's a G note. So we're doing the same type of chord, a 7-9 chord, dominant 7-9, but now we're doing it for G, which is the 4 of D, for those of you who know about 1, 4, 5. Now if we go up 2 more frets, that's the 5 chord. So you'd have a lot of stuff like, say, Sex Machine uses a little 9th riff. It'd be like... So you do that for a really long time, and then he calls the bridge. That means you go to the G, and we have a little different riff with the 13 thing. And then after a while, he'll call the turnaround, and that means like do something like a... Okay, so we use the 1 chord, we use the 4 chord, we use the 5 chord, which is usually that turnaround type of thing to get you back to your first chord. So one more time for Sex Machine a little bit. Okay, so that's a little bit of Sex Machine. So Make It Funky's bridge, when Make It Funky was doing the... And when that one goes to the bridge, when the one guy's hitting the G chord, that person's doing this figure. So these are called like a, it's like a chank, or kind of a rhythm stroke, or a figure is kind of more the single note thing. So for Make It Funky, the bridge is... Da-na-da, da-na-da, da-na-da. And then eventually goes, and then we would continue with the beginning part. All right. Oh, here's another part of Hot Pants for anybody who wants to get into the riff of that song. After a while, you get this riff. So that's a little thing kind of based off, kind of like a D7 type of a thing. The original recording was much different than that. When we played it live towards the end of Mr. Brown's career, we had the song in D and that riff in D. But originally, the song was in E flat. And when they went to that riff, they didn't stay in the same key, they went to the C. So kind of a, you know, things change over the years. So anyway, if you notice these riffs, that stuff and this, that kind of thing comes out of the D minor pentatonic scale. So even though we're using like dominant 7 chords and things like that, we got a major 3 in there. Still, a lot of times the riffs that work with that come out of the D minor pentatonic scale, which is 1, flat 3, 4, 5, flat 7, 1. So, you know, you got your minor element, you put in that 7 thing, you kind of mix in some major with it. It doesn't sound so majorish because that 3rd is in that lower end too, I think so. Anyway, here's one that uses the Hendrix chord. So this is Soul Power. So here's the riff for Soul Power. This is the D7 sharp 9 chord. So this one has a little bit more of a minor edge. You see you're coming out of that D minor shape for the beginning of that riff. So this is the D minor. This is the 5th note of the D. So when you go to this one, you've got a D minor 6. And when you go to this one, the C note, you've got a D minor 7. So it's like you're doing D minor 6, D minor 7, D minor 6. When we come up here, we got our G9 chord. Once again, riffs out of the D minor pentatonic scale there. So it's trying to go into the ending there. Let me try that one more time. So. Uh-oh, losing my power here a little bit. There we go. Alright, sorry about that. Forgot I had unplugged that, so things happen. Anyway, let's go on to another song. Here's one called Papa Don't Take No Mess. Starting with the G7-9 here. So this little chunk right here, that's part of a G chord, so that matches with your G7-9 pretty well. Comes out of that, if you notice that G bar chord there, you got 4, 3, 3 is the top, what they call the top of that chord. So that's what he's going to on that riff. Now the other guy in that one is doing a riff out of the G minor pentatonic scale. So he's going 3, 4, 1. So that one is the wah-wah part. So you'd be using your wah-wah to go for that riff. Try to get some shifting sounds on there, you know. So that cool little bridge there is the same chord each time, as you can see. You got your G7-9, F7-9, E flat 7-9, D9. And so you know we're looking at these bass notes. We got the G, F, E flat, and D. So this chord is tricky to get. It's all about having this finger be able to flatten out and get all 3 of those strings up there while getting these other fingers over the top. So it takes some maneuvering, like, you know, even that D7 is a little tricky for people the first couple times, you know, you probably do that one instead. But when you want to get moving up to the next harder level of stuff, these chords will become part of your vocabulary, you know, probably. So anyway, it's one of those things when people are trying to do chords, like with an F chord. People have a hard time getting this to flatten out, but still getting this one over the top of that. And I always tell people it's like your fingers want to grab things, right? That's what your finger does. It goes like that. It doesn't really go like that, you know? If it does, sometimes you're like, ow, how did my finger get like that? But sometimes on chords, it's all about trying to get your fingers to bend kind of in that other direction, keep that kind of shape. So that's what's going on with that ring finger in this James Brown funk chord. So, all right, let's look at another one. It has the D, raise 9. So this one's super bad. This was my favorite one to do in the show. James Brown would usually wait until the band was really hot and it was going really well, and then he felt like dancing, and he would call super bad, and then he would do a big dance and stuff. So that was always a fun one. So here goes super bad. So lots of scratches in there. I'm actually just starting with muting everything except for these two notes to start with. That C and that F right there from the raise 9 chord. So I have these fingers here, but they're muting the strings. My thumb is muting. Muting is a big deal with all guitar stuff, but especially when you're having to stroke all the strings back and forth like in funk, you really want to be able to mute every string all the time that you are not actively trying to pick out, you know. So I have 4 strings muted. The small one is muted by the bottom of my pinky and even sort of my bottom of my first finger over here. These 2 notes are muted just from my fingers being on that string. This finger is overlapping and touching the big string. My thumb is actually coming around and touching that too. So there's no way any notes are coming out except these 2. So I just have to manage the pressure of those 2, you know, release them every time I want pick scratches, put the tension back in when I want that chord to come through. And then I'm kind of alternating, getting that bass note to come in, so I have like this contrast between this higher chord and this lower bass note. You can get some kind of good interplay going with that. So the next part of that song goes. So that's out of your D minor pentatonic scale as well. That's D, F, G, and A. So you see the shift there between your D raise 9 and going back to your normal 7/9. Kind of gives it a more, it gets kind of extra funky there and less of a heavy edge, you know, less minor, more kind of a party. And that's when he's like, you know, I'm super bad, you know, and all that kind of stuff. I got soul and everything. So let's see. Okay, so super bad. Then there's a horn part. No, no, no. No, 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 no. So the band has a whole break. No, no, and then we come back in. Let me see, what is that? No, no. There's so many different songs that have like similar parts. Like here's one. So that one's in F. That uses that 13 chord a little bit. It uses a little bit of the F major pentatonic. So you see that still has that major edge. That's why these chords are so cool. They can go, you know, darker with the minor, lighter with the major. But I like to give everybody a started on major pentatonic by kind of reminding them of how kind of My Girl goes. Because that's the easiest way to get into a major pentatonic scale. And you see they use that part of they use that position of that scale for that riff too, so. It has a part there that goes. And And this here, if you're on the big bass string, the E, you got 6, you skip the A, you mute the A, 6, 5, 6. That's another way of doing that 9 chord that we know, like this D9. See, that's bass note is on the 5th string. This one is if you have to do it up here, same chord, but on a different string, different shape, right? So now I could there just do a B flat 7. See how the other one sounds more funk. Okay, here's one that's more in sort of the blues funk realm. This one's called I'll Go Crazy. So this one has a little riff out of the G minor pentatonic scale. So this goes. So I'm starting with that G, G, F, D. And then we're just going to the 4 chord. So we're kind of following the G7 and the C7 for these. So. Okay, I think that one actually might have just been a 9 there, but you got G, C, G, D7, 9 is your turnaround chord. So one guy's doing the riff, the other guy's doing this kind of thing. And then he goes like, you gotta live for yourself, yourself and nobody else. You gotta live for yourself. So that's up to our G sharp 9. So he kind of makes this, you know, interesting thing there. Normally he's got that 7 going and he's in a blues type thing. All of a sudden he shifts it to this heavier funk thing. And then he goes back to the blues. So he did that with a lot of songs, like Try Me was one that starts out like a traditional kind of love song doo-wop type of thing. C, A minor, F, G, G with a B bass there. Okay, so he goes funk there. So that, I think they fought him on that when he was recording it. And he's like, no, it's gonna work. I mean, just let people hear it, and it became a huge hit. So now this, since I'm on that one, that's another way to do a G7 chord. G, B, F, B. So you got different options. You know, you got that open one. You got this 9 chord. You got this 7 chord. You got this one. This is another shape of that. It's another G7 there. All right. So I'll Go Crazy also has a cool little ending. It's like so that's A7-9 to the A flat to the G. And then when you hit this G, you end on that 13. So it has a different top note, different kind of inversion sound to it. Okay. So, Oh, here's another one. The big Payback has basically a kind of a clean guitar part and a wah-wah guitar part. So one part is like so the other part is a wah-wah part and it waits. It's like ding dong, ba-dum dum dum ding dong, ga-dum dum 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 dum. So you can really put them together. Like when I do with the JVs, it's just me on guitar and it's a two-part thing. Sometimes you try to figure out a way to incorporate both parts without, you know, kind of making too much happen. But I can kind of pull that off, and sometimes I'll kick the wah-wah on when it's necessary, and sometimes I'll be like, yeah, that's too much back and forth. But anyway, if you were to do both parts together, it would be like. And so you actually have this other chink in there as well. You got and that chink is really the main part. So you'd probably just do that if it was just you. Now when it was me and I was doing the wah-wah and Keith Jenkins was doing this part, then I was doing that. So you got it. All right, so before I finish up here, maybe let's talk about some of the elements of funk. So one of the things of funk is there's a lot of repetition, but you're trying to listen to the whole group, and you're trying to sort of like, it's like you're like in the Mad Hatter's teacup ride, and you're going around and around, but you know, it always kind of spins a little different, and so you kind of want to always be in the moment and listening, and not just be like a robot playing the exact same thing. You want it to breathe, and you want to feel the other people, and sometimes a little more funkiness gets in there, and sometimes it chills out, and you know, so a lot of it is being able to hear everybody and being able to control your volume enough to where you can get into the middle of the sound of everyone. And with funk, when you have more than one guitar player, you try to do complementary parts. You know, you try to have someone doing, like I say, like a figure, like a, you know, or even a, maybe the other guy's going, you know, whatever it might be. You should know your pentatonic scales, like I said. It's helpful to know your major pentatonic also. So if you know these guitar patterns, you know that the same pattern. So I'm starting on D, I'm doing the minor pentatonic there. But if I came down here with my pinky, don't do this B here and start on that D, but do that same kind of pattern, that's a D major pentatonic. So those things are important to know for blues and, you know, gospel, soul, R&B, funk, all those kinds of things. So, all right, well, thanks for hanging out, and I'm going to try to include some of these tabs, like you got the Payback there, you got a little Papa's Mess and Hot Pants, and we got some Papa Don't Take No Mess over here. We got some Super Bad, some I'll Go Crazy. And then we had what we started with, the D chords and all that. So thank you very much. Take care. Come and see us at Modern Music Studio.